Good rising, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I am Tayla Andre. Waking up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day that we link up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. We have in the building the amazing Sage Salvo. We're going to just call him that because government matters not. We speak all the time about how words matter and life and death is in the power of the tongue. And this man is the embodiment of that. And so I would like to introduce to you Sage Salvo. What's going on?
What's going on? Appreciate you. Thank you for
No
giving me this
worries.
moment to share with you.
I love your mom in the back, though.
Oh, good look. I appreciate it, man. I love my mom. She passed when I was 26 years old. And it's just spiritually, she's always around. You see pictures of her always around me. And a lot of what she imparted is always around me, including her love of literature and words and language as well. So, yeah, I kind of carry her with me a lot.
So, Sage, one of the things that you are doing right now is revealing the unexamined genius. And I'm intrigued with this because we know our babies are intelligent,
Absolutely.
creative, innovative, but yet the testing system and the way that our education is set up in America does not reveal our unexamined genius. And
Yeah.
so I love the thought process behind this, and just tell the viewers a little bit about you and why this is important.
Yeah. I'll kind of start with maybe why this is important. So I'm gonna go. I take it usually to math, even though like a lot of my work is in language and civics and history and social studies. But if you look at math, I think math has like the clearest example of this. So if you look at the way we teach math and the way that we ask students to memorize theorems and recite, understand equations, memorize properties, that process of learning math is completely divorced from the origins of math, which is observation with celestial bodies. It's astronomy. It goes all the way back to Egypt, but it has everything to do with looking at bodies in motion, measuring stars, measuring celestial bodies, direct physical observation. That's where our theories come from. That's where our understanding of relative motion comes from. That's where our understanding of variables and unknowns come from. But we teach that in this abstract manner. So if you divorce the origin of the particular lesson and the theorem from its physical properties, you're asking kids to just do a purely abstract mental, exercise. And for our kids, especially those Black and brown kids, that's not how we learn. Like it's completely non-native to how we learn. And so what we try to do is to bring back our native senses into the learning process. So you can teach math more physically, teach math through observation, teach math through things that are more tangible. Likewise, you can teach logic, you can teach language, you can teach that through things that we innately do: music, storytelling, poetry. And that's really what my program does, and kind of where I try to situate education now. And we have an opportunity through technology to do it. And so just a little bit of background. One of my long-standing hobbies is songwriting and poetry. But I was someone who, like many people, thought that I needed to do like something that was a moneymaker when I started studying and going to school. So I studied economics. It just so happens when I was doing economics or learning about macroeconomics and taxonomies and big systems, I was hosting a real popular open mic in DC called Busboys and Poets. And I was around these world famous poets like every single week. We were jamming, we were having dialogue, we were going back and forth. And I said, man, if I could get my students to communicate the way that these poets do, like I could more, like I can get them to perform way above the standards that we're trying to test them on. And that's how my brain, just like that really intense moment in time where I'm studying big systems in macroeconomics and I'm trying to figure out at the same moment how to get my kids to improve their proficiency with reading and writing. That moment is what led to this idea about WordsLiive and how to recreate and remix curriculum in a way that's much more native culturally to our students. And from there, I just started answering different calls. Like, okay, you did it in one classroom. Can you do it for a school? You did it for a school. Can you do it for a school district? How does this go out to reach the country? You need technology. What does that look like? And I just have been in the process of just trying to meet that challenge and figure out like what the next step is to get it to all the kids that need it. And that's what set me on this journey that I've been in. Been a bunch of education accelerators. We've raised money. We've gotten about 4,000 teachers across the country on the platform to use it. The technology is moving into like a machine learning AI phase, so we can generate more content. And yeah, it's just the best, most efficient tool to create lesson plans from the music that kids are already listening to and speaking to them about language, about literacy, about grammar, about vocabulary in a way they're familiar with it.
So this is a lot deeper than I read and what I
It gotta be, you know, I
conjured up
still
in my
gotta get
head.
people to adopt it, right? So
So this is really dope. This is extremely dope. And I'm thinking like, as a parent, how do I get you in my school district? How do I get you in front of my children?
the
How?
cool thing is right now we're not directly going to school districts. There's a few reasons why. So this is something we had to wrestle with as a startup company, which is like a business model. And when we talk to investors and we talk to these programs, they're like, well, what's your business model? How are you going to go to school districts? And when we encounter teachers and parents, especially the last few years, they're kind of tired and just been oversaturated with technologies being pushed down upon them from the school district level. So a superintendent will go out and they'll buy a new package of technologies and they'll say, here, schools, this is what you're going to use for the next school year. Well, how much buy-in did that have from the parents? How much buy-in did it have from the actual teachers who are supposed to use this? So what we decided to do was like reverse the direction and go from the ground up and put it directly in teachers and parents' hands to get them to adopt it first, build community around it, and then push it up and say, hey, 20 teachers in this school are using it. Now we can do a school-wide or district-wide deal. And so that's what we've been in process of just building that community. So you can actually go to us directly. And what we've been doing since COVID-19 is sending out Google links of lessons, because what we found are everybody doesn't have internet access. So although we have this beta platform that's available online, if you don't have internet access, like what good does the platform do? You can't access the content. So we actually took what's on our beta, customize it into like a Google Doc that we can send. You can text message, you can put in WhatsApp, group me, and you can get all the lesson plans and the slides that way. And we send that directly to teachers and directly to parents. So if your kids are reading a certain book, if they have a certain unit, if they're struggling with a certain competency, you can literally just reach out to us directly, social media, email, directly. We can literally text you, email it to you, whatever the case may be, because we're trying to meet the challenge of this current moment.
How much is it?
It's free right now. It's totally free. So it'll be free.
How are you living?
We have investment. So, like I said, this journey has placed me on, I think, like a pretty privileged path in that I've been able to get investors, program revenue. Sometimes I'll self-fund it myself, but I've been able to hire people, hire engineers, get the support I need through programs. We've gone through AT&T's accelerator, gone through Camelback, we've gone through 4.0 schools, we've gone through Village Capital, Lean Lab in Kansas City. So like we've been fortunate. We've been supported by a couple of education programs and investors.
Okay. When can you send that to me? Because I'm, as a parent, we're all homeschooling right now, even though our children are still enrolled in school and our teachers are still getting paid.
Absolutely.
But I'm an educator. So all we have to do is just go to the website and say,
and literally reach out. The email on the website is sage@wordsliive.org. You can do that, and you can literally just send a request. Like my kid is doing, first of all, our sweet spot is like 3rd through 12th grade. That's like our sweet spot. If you're in English, history, civics, social studies, we have content for you. And the way the content works is usually give us a problem. If there's a certain unit they're studying the Civil War, or there's a certain competency they're not understanding, it's metaphors, or what's the topic sentence of a paragraph. If you just give us that, we can then send back a ton of music examples with activities, with assessments, with exercises that the kids can do.
So how does this play a role in, or what challenges have you experienced given, some states, I know Massachusetts is one of the states that we have core learning tool? Like I don't know. I have no idea what core is.
You mean the Common Core?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So have you reached any difficulties with that? Like it doesn't meet our minimum or?
No, so the beta version is actually based on Common Core strands for reading literature and reading information text. Now, Common Core is interesting because it's really a set of guidelines and a scheme for how to scaffold up learning through the grades. So it doesn't necessarily say read the autobiography of Frederick Douglass. It doesn't really prescribe specific text. It just gives you the competency. So fifth grade, language band 4.7 you should be able to understand the topic sentence of a paragraph. That's kind of what Common Core does.
Mm-hmm.
And the freedom in that is, okay, technically we're not bound to read, Shakespeare or The Great Gatsby. Technically, if I can get your student to perform that competency in a 3-verse song, they've hit that competency. We can check that off. And then we can bridge over to whatever source text you want. So we actually built the whole entire platform based on the Common Core strands. Now, the cool thing is the paid version, which goes out in the fall, is you'll be able to customize that to your state standards. And here's what I mean. So Common Core is political, unfortunately, right? Like I wish certain things in education didn't have to fall and be divided into politics, but it is because of the administration that it came under. So, okay, every state's not adopting Common Core. And in fact, there's kind of this movement to states to become more autonomous and get rid of Common Core and create their own standards. We'll see where that goes. But if you're in one of those states that doesn't do Common Core, if you just send us your standards, we actually can stratify the assessments, activities, and question stems based on your state standards. So your kid will be practicing those question stems that come at the end of the year on their state exam. They'll be practicing that during their lesson plan, even though it'll be over a Jay-Z song.
So can we do an example? Is that possible?
Well,
can we,
sure.
Let's do Drake.
Oh God, of course you would pick Drake.
Actually, I really want Kendrick Lamar. Can we do Kendrick Lamar?
Sign a Kendrick, man. Yeah.
Okay.
And that's no shade. Let me stop being like that. That's no shade. Drake. So I love getting into like artist techniques. And just to give you a quick background, Drake does what Lil Wayne did with lyrics, which was he would like intersperse a double entendre inside of a simile. So an example is like when Drake says something like, "I knew she was fine like a ticket on a dash." Okay, that's a simile structure. You have like that's connecting these two ideas and is meant for comparison. But fine is a double entendre. It means that she's fine, visibly good to look at, like she's beautiful, but he's also saying fine, like the ticket you get from the government when you're fined. That's actually a new device. And I think I wrote about this a couple years ago. That's actually a new literary device. Now, the kids understand it. They understand the comparison and they understand the double entendre. But what boggles my mind is when you get them to just do double entendre in a Shakespeare poem or a simile in Robert Frost writing, they don't get it. But they get it when it's actually more compounded and complicated in the rap. So we just break it apart. We say, what's the simile structure? Can you identify the two things that are being compared? Can you identify like or as in the middle? Can you identify double entendre? What are both ways that fine is understood? And the kids demonstrate that they understand that. So they have reading comprehension over that particular verse.
I wish this was around when I was in school. I probably have a doctorate right now.
Everybody says that. Everybody. I wish it was, like it comes from my experience. I was the kid where, and I remember this specifically, it was 11th grade. It was Mr. Ward's class. And we had to read The Great Gatsby. And, The Great Gatsby is like these multiple layers of meaning. There's like these two dual lives in Great Gatsby himself. And it's like, this privileged, lifestyle versus like this, not so privileged origin of where you come from. And I was listening to Nas. It was written at the same time, and just it was currently Nas's transition, right? He's talking about his Queensbridge origin, but then he's talking about this newfound fame and celebrity and wealth he has. So I just immediately connected those two, and to me, the poetics and it was written were like far superior to what F. Scott Fitzgerald was doing. Oh my God. I mean, Nas blew him off the water when it comes to this penmanship. And so I used to try to get my teacher to understand this. Like, it was like, I'm a kid, any other kid in the classroom, but I'm trying to explain Nas to Mr. Ward and why it's relevant to understand The Great Gatsby. And it's totally shutting me down. And I'm like, but this is what's helping me understand The Great Gatsby, right? And he was totally shutting it down. And that stuck with me because I'm like, no, this is like, why are you shutting this down? I'm making comparisons. Like, intelligence is quite literally how many connections, how many mental and cognitive connections you can make. And I'm doing this in real time and I'm showing you and I'm explaining it to you. That's a superior learner right there. Like, I'm making these connections and I'm explaining how they're connected, but whatever. So, but that stuck with me. And I think that has been part of the fuel for like, how do I enable those opportunities for more students today? Because what we're seeing right now is across the country, reading proficiency has actually gone down. So the pandemic has kind of cast a shadow over some of the other problems we're having in education. But the most recent NAEP scores, which came out earlier this year, show that for the first time, I think in like 2 decades, reading proficiency has actually gone down, which is astonishing when you think of all the technology that's at the school's disposal, which then means all the stuff we've been investing in from a literacy and education perspective has done harm to our students. That's literally what that means. Not that it stayed stagnant, they're actually performing lower. So that means that all the investment, all these new tools, all this technology, all these iPad, and all the stuff we've been doing for the past 10 years has actually done harm to the learning of our students. And that's a big problem. And so, I think we're at a moment that we can kind of reshape the way things are done, which is why now we're accelerating towards more of a commercial product to be available. And yeah.
Okay. So one question before we go into like another example, because I just want to play with this a little bit more and understand like history and math, and like I'd like to do one in each subject. Okay. But so when you look at Roddy Ricch, so I'm a young mom. I'm a mom of a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old, and they listen to some shit that I know. I'm like, what? I feel like my parents. I'm like, yo, what the fuck is this? But I feel like I'm hip enough, even though I'm not. How does this relate? Or, I'm in the culture. I'm a part of the culture. I am the culture. But what about, let's say, for instance, a Minnesotan teacher who wants to implement this and help out the 4 Black kids in the school? I don't know, just throwing something weird out there. Yeah. How is this, like, is there country music a part of the program as well? Or is it just, for real?
No, definitely. If you go on a platform, there's everything from Taylor Swift to John Mayer to Tim McGraw. I think you've got the Beatles. So here's why though. If you're truly dedicated to being culturally responsive, then that means you can't approach this with your own preconceived notions about what students like. So when we go to classrooms, we ask teachers to give us a poll. Who are your kids listening to? What are they into? Right? Like, if we're going to be responsive culturally to them, that means that we literally have to dig into their culture, reveal, part of revealing Unexamined Genius, the educational value there, and give it to you in the platform where you can use it to teach your kids. So it doesn't matter if we're in Appalachia and they listen to nothing but regional, country folk that you'll never hear on the top 20 or top 100 list, but that's who they listen to. Then we're going to actually listen to that music, run our algorithm through it, and see if we can present it back. That's what it means to be culturally responsive. And I learned this lesson the hard way. One of the first years we did this, we went down to, it was Montgomery, Alabama. We were in Montgomery, Alabama. And, Montgomery, Alabama is only, I don't know, maybe 2.5 hours from Atlanta. It's like literally down, I think it was I-20. It's like 2.5 hours down the road. So I'm going down there, I got T.I., I got Jeezy, I got Outcast. I'm like, this is ATL heavy, right? We're around Atlanta. Man, these kids wanted nothing to do with those artists. And this is all black school, all black, low income Title I school. They wanted nothing to do with them. They listened to these very local people you would never hear of outside of Alabama, right? But that was their culture. That's who they listened to. And so we had to go back, like, all right, let me take a listen to, whoever these artists you guys are telling us about. And in 2 or 3 days, we were there for a week, and we had to turn around our whole lesson plans that included those artists they were listening to, because they just
Who were
weren't
they?
running. Honestly, I can't even remember at this point. I feel like one guy was like Big Doe or something. I think his name was like Big Doe. He was like really popular. He gotten killed recently in Montgomery, Alabama. And he was like a regional, kind of like, in a weird way, like not conscious trap artist, but like he was a trap artist that had some depth to him. Like he had, he could put some messages into it. So it was actually for us, stuff like that is actually fun, because it's like, man, like these artists, just like any other artist or in any other time period, they have these layers and these complexities. And when you really dig into it, what you're really saying is that we're all human beings, and we're all articulating our human experiences. So they're just universal themes. There's love, there's loss, there's fear, there's confrontation, there's, betrayal, there's revenge. Like there's just human universal themes. And so it's, we put everything into genres, but it's just human beings expressing the human experience. So when you take that approach, it's like you really begin to see the similarities, and you really begin to see the connection. So it's actually not hard. That stuff is fun for us, because we otherwise wouldn't know who Big Doe, I think it was Big Doe, who that artist was, because we don't live in Alabama. So, yeah.
So what does a day look like for you? Like, as far as being in the work, what does being in the work look like for you and your team?
So right now, it really is a brain trust. So if you kind of approach it by 2 ways, we try to look at what's current. So like what albums, what mixtape, what songs are shooting up the chart, and we just run through our algorithm to see like what we can stamp out of it. And the cool thing about us is we don't try to make lesson plans directly from songs. We just try to like objectively look at the song and see what's up. And then we'll go retro. Like I'll go reverse as well, because the really cool thing that I love that's happening is, because of these streaming services like YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, the kids' musical taste and their musical awareness is like vastly superior to what mine was when I was a teenager, because I didn't have these algorithms saying, hey, we noticed you listen to, Big Doe, you might like Jeezy. Hey, you listen to Jeezy, you might like T.I. Hey, you listen to T.I., you might like. We didn't have that, but these algorithms are telling these kids, hey, since you listen to this, you should listen to these other 5 artists, and they're doing it. And when you take these polls, kids listen to everything from K-pop to Frank Sinatra to Aaliyah, and you're like, how does a 14-year-old know these lyrics from Frank Sinatra and K-pop and Aaliyah like word for word? And it's the algorithms at play. So we go backwards and try to stay contemporary. We're not restrained from having to only include the latest, hottest songs in the database. No, like these kids are listening to everything. And so we're just constantly trying to bring in more content, and then answering the ticket requests. So when someone says, hey, this is National Poetry Month, or my kids are really like consuming the Rhapsody, like they love Rhapsody, this new, young female MC, or my kids are really struggling with subject verb agreement. Like we just try to answer those tickets and send the content back.
What was probably like your favorite or like the most enjoyable content creation?
Ooh, for me, it would be the longer term projects. So I'll give you the example. Like songs are cool, and really, usually what you have is within a song, it'll be like a certain couple of bars, or we're very heavily on excerpt based, but that excerpt will speak specifically to that learning objective, not the whole song. The more intimate and like when we really get into it is when it's like a whole album project. So for instance, Kendrick Lamar's first studio album, Good Kid, Mad City, is a complete epic novel in music form from start to finish. I mean, he has literally every single requisite element of an epic, from beginning the album with a prayer, an invocation to a deity, to being crowned the king at the end. It has literally every element of an epic novel that you need. So that's fun because we get to go through this whole entire project and then map it on the whole entire epics like Beowulf and the Iliad. Like those are, because it's more, you know, it's a little more intense. Those are the kind of things that I love to do. Like, and it's just beautiful when those relationships, you know, jump out of the page and jump off the track, and you're like, oh my God, like this is an epic novel. And you start drawing the parallels and show how easy it is to teach epic novel structure through that album. Is those stand out for me.
And have you reached out to the artists that you reference? Are they aware of the work that you're doing with their?
You know what? So we did initially, and what we decided to do was, in the technology, is to build in automatic like social media tweets. So it's not available yet in the beta that's public, but in the version that's coming out this fall, every time a teacher puts a lesson plan together, they'll have automatic tweets that go out to the artists who are included in that lesson plan, because I think that part's important. Like, you see when the artists themselves as a personality get involved, obviously the engagement is even higher than just, you know, evaluating their work. And so the goal is literally to what I call to bring the music industry like a Big Mac truck into the education industry. That's my big, huge goal.
Well, I went to a more touch and agree. Ashe.
Let's do it. Absolutely. I appreciate you for saying that. I need all the affirmation I can get.
I got you. Okay, so when it comes to math, I'm probably in the second grade. So let's start there. And I'm up for any genre.
So I'm not as good in math because I think it's like we focus specifically on language and literature, but I can give you some interesting examples. So, and this is more sophisticated than second grade, but like calculus, especially, for instance, calculus is looking at like rates of change and relative rates of change. So once you change one variable, how does that affect another variable in an equation? And this is directly related to looking at constellations in motion. If you look at all the theorems that calculus comes from, it was from astronomers. And so the way that I would love to see pre-calc, even some algebra, especially trigonometry, calculus taught, is actually take kids out and use astronomy, like make it physical. Go back to where this whole thing started. I would love to see that. There's another interesting book from a basketball player, Bill Russell, where he talked about the way that he would rebound. If you're in Boston, everybody knows Bill Russell from the Boston Celtics. The way he would rebound was he would calculate the angles that the ball was likely to come off the rim, and he would beat opponents to that spot. So he was playing basketball, but using math and using geometry to out rebound the opponents. Stuff like that is beautiful. And if you bring in the music, a really cool thing to do if you're trying to do some simple math is actually on a production side. So the lyrics kind of come in secondarily. We normally go with production, which is like beats per minute, matching syllables to the beats per minute, measuring beats in a metronome, which like literally like has to count and then keep the sequence, and then trying to finish a verse. So like if you get the BPMs per minute, you get the syllable count per BPM, and a verse isn't finished, how many syllables are left and how many words can you fit in that to finish the bar? Like that's the kind of math you can do. But it's more like producing the song at that point.
Okay. So history, how does history play a role?
History is easy because that's thematic. Like that's when people literally do something like Common did, where he had the song about Assata Shakur. I'm thinking of Assata, him and CeeLo. And if you're teaching anything about the civil rights movement and you want to talk about the Black Panther Party, you start with that song about Assata, because that allows you to go into why this Black Panther Party was necessary, what the response to it was, how they were treated, what political asylum means, what political asylum is. It allows you to divulge and open up the lesson that way. When artists do that, they give you a peek into history. That's another great example for history.
Okay. So with math, taking it and using it towards astronomy, is there, like, I'm wondering if that's something that you are interested in doing yourself. Is
Put it like this: if nobody does that, if nobody builds that curriculum out in like the next couple of years, we probably will. I just think as a non-math expert, I just feel like I'm not the one to do that.
So why don't you bring somebody on that is a math expert that can use the tools that you already have in place?
I agree. There's a guy in Atlanta, Marcus. He has a thing called Make Music Count, and it's like a basic math. He's like the complement does. Like it's like largely hip hop based, but it's like a basic math app for like counting and algebra, and he does a lot with production, playing instruments as well. He would be somebody, and we talk, so this ain't no big secret. He'd be somebody I'd be interested in linking up with and building that out in the
Just
future.
interested? Just interested. That's it, Sage.
I mean, this work, let me tell you, this work is hard. Like to get to a level of sustainability, a lot of things have to be in place, right? And so on my side, on the partner side, like it's like a lot of things got to fall in line, and that's why I think you don't, like a lot of logical connections and collaborations don't happen because like timing sometimes, right? Like the resources just aren't there, and the timing's not there. It makes logical sense, but a lot of things got to be in line, for those collaborations to happen. So I'm open to it. I pray it happens.
Well, when two or more touch and agree, that's what I'm here for. That's
it.
That's what I'm here for.
I'm with it. I'm with it. I accept.
So how did you begin? So this is an amazing idea that was probably just an idea that you cultivated into this. Yeah. Are you global yet or just national?
We are. And the weird part is, I mean, we've done national conferences like ISTE, South by Southwest, but with those conferences come international participation. So when we go and look at where our users are, we have users in Singapore, users in China, users in Israel. And we're kind of like, I mean, we physically haven't gone there. We haven't advertised there, but you kind of forget how open, or at least it used to be, how open the industry it is. You do a presentation at a big conference, you have no idea who's there, and people from all over the world are there. And so, while we're focused, at least right now, just in the very near future in the U.S., like we definitely have educators and teachers all over the world using the platform.
So how can this be useful or helpful to parents? Like, let's say, for instance, I'm not an English-speaking parent, but I want to utilize this for my children.
Yeah, really cool thing that we're building out, and I'll have to say this is more so for Spanish-speaking parents. So what we found is Spanish literature, just like English literature, developed around the same time, a lot of the same devices, a lot of the same format. So we said, what about Spanish music? Pitbull, who else did we use? Mark Anthony, and then my guy in Puerto Rico, Ozuma. We started importing that in Spanish. So here's a really cool thing that happened. And this ran, I think Boston, the teacher in Boston that used this. So it was a unit on, I want to say they were talking about analogies. I think they were talking about like rhetoric and being persuasive and using analogy. And Ozuma had a song, Lord knows I don't remember the name of the song, but he had like these 4 just really dope analogies in the song. Granted, this is in pure Spanish. And so we imported that song with, I don't know, a couple other songs in English and allowed the students who were comfortable reading in Spanish to utilize Ozuma's song as their baseline for learning the structure and the effect of analogy. And then we tabbed over to the source text, which is like some New York Times article or something. And that was really cool. And that showed us like, hey, you can actually use it as a bridge for students who aren't as comfortable in English yet, allow them to get the concept down first and then bridge over to the English-based source text. So that was really cool. And that showed us like a new way that we could bring more students into the fold. And that's something you can do at home with your Spanish-speaking parents. And that's something you can do as like a baseline and, just an on-ramp. And for us, it's like, we got to expand the on-ramp, right? Like everyone's not going to enter at the same point for trying to learn a concept or start a unit. You got to expand the way that they can get to that content, the way they can get to that source text. And that's really what we're trying to do. So that was a cool like little case study that we did that showed like, hey, we can actually do this in Spanish, allows to be the bridge and tab over. Yeah.
So as a Boston-based parent, uh, probably not now, but whenever you have a chance, I would love to tap into that educator that used your program as an ally to
Definitely.
get more parents and more educators to use the program.
Yeah.
So what because everybody cares about numbers. Like it's always about numbers. It's never about experience, but what statistics do like where's the proof that this works, Sage?
Yeah.
What have you seen as far as analytics are concerned, and how do you measure the growth?
Yeah, so we actually started doing our first, you call it research, but it's really just randomized controlled trials, which is like you take a classroom of like very statistically similar students. One group gets these WordsLiive lessons and the other doesn't. They get standardized lessons. And we looked at measuring along two sort of tracks. First was engagement. Like, can we prove that using the WordsLiive lesson plans increases engagement? That's kind of like level one. And then level two is the actual performance. And what we decided to do was we're not going to focus on like SATs or nothing like that. And now you see a lot of colleges are no longer requiring SATs. So I'm glad we were ahead of the curve there. We don't focus on state standard exams. I mean, they exist. They probably won't go anywhere. But that's just not our bread and butter. Our bread and butter is like literally the day-to-day learning. Did you teach a concept today? How quickly does that kid demonstrate knowledge on that concept? So that's things like quizzes and exit tickets. Like, what's the exit ticket to get out the class? What's the quiz at the end of the unit? That's where we focus our performance on. And so what we want to do ultimately is prove that we can increase reading and writing proficiency during those short windows. Like, kids will get better grades on their exit tickets. Kids will get better grades on their homework. And that then translates to better grades at the end of the year and hopefully, more, higher performance on the state standardized testing. So we know that we've increased engagement. Our first trial shows that performance, there was a slight uptick, but because these are very early studies, I think you just need a more longitudinal study. And so what we've done is we've applied to do these long 2-year grants with the Department of Education. And if we get that, then we'll have a more formalized way to show, hey, if you use this platform, on average, student performance grades went up, whatever, X% or whatever the case may be. But you got to first, because reading proficiency is kind of hard to measure, first you want to show engagement. Engagement then leads to this increased performance. And that's kind of how our studies have been structured. But we're actively applying and pursuing for research grants now with the Department of Education.
That is amazing. So I'm just over here writing because I have all of these questions coming up. So what about students that may have like special needs, IEPs, or what's it called when you go undiagnosed dyslexia?
Yeah, I actually think we're an IEP partner's dream because of the way you can personalize and like sort of customize every lesson plan. And I would love, we haven't done this, we probably haven't done this enough. Just like, again, just trying to put everything together and just kind of get it installed. But I actually think ultimately, especially with the next version of the platform, we're going to specifically go after IEP and people who are building IEPs because it's too easy to customize. You can get drilled down to the specific competency, to the specific music that the student wants to hear, what kind of music affects their mood. Like we can drill down in so many ways and customize it that I think it's almost like we have to go there. We just haven't done it enough right now. And we always get pegged into social emotional learning as well because it's music based, which I think is another big thing. We haven't explicitly said that, but that's another area we're going to dig into. Is like we're going to be part of the social emotional resource track as well, because the music really does do a great job in kind of getting the student emotionally ready to conquer new material. And obviously, the more we can connect them socially with artists in a bigger community, we're improving their social emotional status. And these are places we haven't done enough in right now, but where I see us going. in the near future.
So do you know, I'm wondering if the white teacher that is always in the videos with his students, like dancing with the students, like I feel like this would be right up his alley. Have you guys connected with him yet?
No, I mean, there's a lot of them. There's a lot of him. I'm seeing like it was like there was one, and then next thing I know, I'm seeing 10 different videos of handshakes and dancing, and I'm like, all right. I mean, not particularly, but if I go back and do the math about who's used our platform, I'm sure some of those teachers are the same teachers. Like, we don't explicitly like, hey, see that video and then go hit them up. I don't do that, but I'm
You
sure.
should. That would be a great marketing strategy.
I got different I got some different thoughts about that, but you know,
You feel on speaking on them, or we just gonna skip over that?
I'll say a little bit to it. I listen. The job of a teacher is like what I've always said is one of the most difficult jobs in the country. Because you're not paid for the value you create, and you create so much value for so many people's lives, and you're so underpaid for that. And then you got to deal with hormones and emotions and traumas that kids bring into the classroom have nothing to do with you. It's one of the most difficult jobs you can do. So anything you can do to set the level of trust and to get them to buy in and show them that you care, man, it's awesome. So when I say this, it's not a knock, right? Like it's not me knocking that tactic. And then also as a person who's never actually taught K through 12, only taught in higher ed, and only volunteered in classrooms, I don't have the position or the privilege to tell you what should or shouldn't happen. So I'm gonna say all of that as my disclaimer. Like, so take this with a grain of salt. With that though, I think you just gotta be. There's a line I draw between affirming your students' culture and using your students' culture. And here's what I mean. If you take elements of the culture, like we know, like we're expressive, we got different handshakes, high fives, like that's a very natural part of our culture. And you take that and use it as a tool to relate to your students to get buy-in. If you haven't properly affirmed that part of their culture and affirmed their identity in that culture, then you're just using that as your own tool to increase your own effectiveness. And that's kind of the line that I draw. It's the same with teachers who use hip hop in classrooms. They don't listen to the artists. They don't like the artists. They're not bought in. They don't think, this is high level art. They're not into it, but they know it works. They're using it as a tool to be effective on their job. And to me, that does damage because you're not affirming the culture that created that expression. And if you're not affirming that, then you're doing a lot of damage to the student, because eventually they're going to see through it and they're going to react to it. And they're going to internalize the fact that this is something that can be commoditized and used and doesn't really have a lot of value, but it's something I love. It's something I know. It's something everybody in my house does. That's damaging. And so that's where I draw a line. Again, I'm not attacking nobody. I don't have the privilege to do it, don't have the position to do it. Anything you can do to relate to your students and make them feel that they're appreciated is good and it's great. It's just I've seen, and I'm as a former student myself, I've been in a position where I feel like what I bring to the table is not affirmed. And if you just use it because you want me to sit still and you just use it because you want me to listen to you, I think that can cause some damage. So I just take a little bit of pause. A little bit of pause, that's all.
I definitely get that. Thank you for sharing that as well. Because I think there are educators that need to hear that utilize certain tactics and tools that are not, and babies, these youth can read through it, see through it, and they know how fake it is. So
they will. They really will. And maybe not at first, but they will eventually. They do.
What about college? How can this be used on the secondary education?
I have no idea. I don't touch college. I think, and I'm glad I didn't, because I think college is so in flux right now. Like I'm not gonna lie, man. I don't think college as we know it is gonna stand up in the next decade or two. I don't. There's master classes. There's so many experts that are bringing their expertise online and making it available to teach you. I think colleges are going to have to go through a massive restructuring, just as an educational service. And so I have no idea what college looks like. I will say this: we've had college interns, and a lot of them. I haven't like myself gone out and just try to recruit a bunch of college interns. We have an internship, but I haven't like sought after them explicitly. But the ones that have come to us, they've come through things like comparative literature, where they're interested in this idea of comparing literature and different genres of literature across time, across literary periods, and different domains. So a comparative literature class, I think, would make the most sense if you were to kind of take this and turn it into like a college silo, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It could be situated there, but I'm not advocating for that.
And you know what? That's actually a great segue into my follow-up question. Would you open your own school?
Not right now. Not right now. But one of my partners is in DC, is in process of doing that, and I plan to help out a lot with that, the charter school. But that's not my calling. It's not. I think my calling is as a tool maker right now, and to make the tools for the people. I think that's my calling.
Mm. And you know what? I don't feel like the question was answered to the depth in which that I was really looking for, as far as like, how did you begin this? So this was, again, an idea. And from that idea, it became something tangible and something real and something that is being utilized globally. But this is not an easy feat. Like, this isn't,
No.
you didn't just write down a business plan and all of a sudden. So for people that, like inventors, you're an inventor. You had to get this patented,
Yes.
I assume, and
Patent
copyright.
and copyright. Yes.
Yeah. So what steps did you take? How long did it take you? Like, for those that do have a creation, whether big or small, like, I just want to empower them and inspire them that it is worth it.
Yes. I love that. So you actually brought up something. Nipsey Hussle, one of my favorite artists. There's two quotes he has. One is actually in a song where he says, I'll say it's worth it. I won't say it's fair. Love that. Talking about this journey and this path. So I'll say it's worth it, but I won't say that it's fair. And just hold those two things in contrast. It's a worthwhile process, but it is not a fair process. Hold those two things in contrast. And then he also said in an interview, he's like, on his journey, he's been through every single human emotion. I feel that. I can talk to that. So this is, technically our 6th year in existence, like from a concept. And the first concept was, like I said, I was just a student in the PhD program in macroeconomics, and I was a songwriter and a poet. And I was also volunteering in the schools. And that's when I had this brain meld, just like you said, just an idea. How do I get kids to read and write at a higher level? What skills I want them to learn? I went through volunteering in one classroom, building a curriculum out for a whole department, training the teachers in that department. Again, no idea about a company, just a guy that's doing stuff. And the principal will come to me and say, hey, to keep coming back to the school, you have to be a vendor. You can't just be this random guy that keeps coming up into that classroom, right? So I was like, oh, okay, you're right. This is process for this thing. So, all right, now I got to start a company, right? Well, how do you do that? Look online. I got to register. I got to be an LLC, right? Like all the paperwork. I didn't hire lawyers. I just read about it and did it. Okay, all right, do that. Now it's next year. Okay, so now I got to get a contract to come to the school. All right, how do I do that? Oh, you have to bid. Oh, okay, well, what's that process like? Go to the government website, go to the school website, bid, put a proposal together. Okay, what's the proposal? Like every single step, I've done every single thing. I've been told no a million times. I've been told this doesn't work a million times. I've had to go up and be persistent. Like, no, just give me 1 hour with your students. Like, let me just show you. Go in, show, improve, bam, they get called back. I've had students tell me that program changed their life. I've had teachers shed tears in classrooms because, I remember this one specific example at Duke Ellington High School in DC. It was a student that reportedly had a learning disability. And by the end of our first session, our first day, the student had gone up to the front of the board and literally was annotating Shakespeare on a board. And this is a student that like never spoke out in class, had like speech impediments and learning disabilities, and like literally moved the teacher to tears. I've been through every single emotion, and that still doesn't mean anything. When you go talk to an investor, that still doesn't mean anything, right? They're like, no, we need data, big data, and repeatable, replicable. So, all right, you got to do it again. You got to repeat it. I got to go to a different school district. Or this might work in DC, but it's not going to work in Arkansas. Okay, got to go to Arkansas. Like I've done every single thing, accelerator programs, all these applications. How does this work? What's your business model? How are you going to reach people? Why are teachers going to pay you out of pocket? How are teachers going to pay you if the school doesn't pay you? Every single question, every single thing, year in and year out, just trying to make it bigger, understand it better, keep pushing through the denials, like every single thing. And I've just kept going, like just being dedicated to the vision and just kept going. And one thing I've learned is that it's contagious. When you survive stuff and when you keep going, you attract other survivalists. You attract other people that think like you. And so the talent that I'm now associated with has gone up. That's why the quality of the platform has gone up. The quality of the service has gone up because I've just been attracting people, attracting educators that have been doing this for 20 years, attracting people that share my vision, attracting technologists that want to change the world and change education. But it's been like years of a process, like years, not months, years. And until you're ready to put years in, I'm gonna be real with you. The journey might not be for you. Like you got to literally, wherever you're starting from, ask yourself, can I do this for years before I see my vision realized? And if the answer is yes, then by all means keep going. But if it's no, it's gonna be a hard road for you. It's gonna be a hard road for you because there's so much you have to learn on the spot. There's so many doors that are going to close to you that don't make any sense. Like it's a perfect alignment. Why are you closing this door? I need this money. I'm perfectly suited for this money. Why are you not cutting this check? It's going to be so much of that. So unless you're dedicated, it's like a long-term vision, it's going to be hard for you. But I can sit here and tell you, I feel like I've been through every single emotion on this journey. And like every hired people, fired people, got stabbed by the back, try to get the code to the app stolen. I've been through everything. Yeah, it's a lot.
You are protected though, right? Like you and your work.
I own everything. Okay. I own absolutely everything. Down from the copyright of the code, copyright of the platform. We have patents in process, which if you know anything about the patent system, it's first to file, which means it goes to when you file, not when it's approved. I've done everything, man. Yeah, make sure I'm protected. I mean, that's an important part. I will say though, a lot of people don't realize this. Intellectual property is government. It becomes government documentation. So once you file a patent or once you file a copyright, it goes into a publicly discoverable record, which means now anybody can read your process. So the patent isn't necessarily a tool that's going to prevent somebody from stealing your idea. In a lot of ways, it can enable somebody to steal your idea. All it allows you to do is go to court. Now, court has cost and time and energy. If you don't have the money to go to court, guess what's going to happen? You're not going to win. And so there's no foolproof plan to prevent somebody from trying to block or steal you. The only foolproof plan you have is to be extremely dope and unparalleled in what you do.
Personal question. How you go from economics, being in an economic program, to being an entrepreneur? Like you kind of sort of could have skipped college altogether, have no student loans.
You ain't lying about that. Sheesh. I tell myself, if there's only one, like, I try not to live with regrets, but if there's only one regret is that I didn't start sooner. That's literally the only thing. Like, but on the flip side, I'll say this. First of all, I overdid school. Like, if you look at my resume, I've overdone school. But I do feel like a lot of what I learned and what I trained in, I'm using. I do feel that way. And I think it's made me just increase my capacity to lead and to lead people who are more talented than I am, and to understand, the market, and to understand my customer, and to understand the way the thing needs to be built. I think my training has helped me in that. So I don't feel like I wasted it. It's just, like, hey man, I wish I would have done this sooner. That's like kind of like the only real thing. And I say this about economics too. A lot of us, Black and brown folks, we don't study economics for whatever reason. I think largely because it's math based, calculus based, really. Economics is a specific way of thinking about the world, and what it does is it causes you to think in systems, and that's what I love. So my approach to language, because that was my hobby, like I said, I was a poet and a songwriter, I was like a hobby. When I took my systems thinking to language, that's when all this stuff opened up to me. So as odd as it seems that they're, in stark contrast to each other, the symmetry there is just understanding what moves the system. And that's really at the heart of what economics is. It's whether it's a household system and you're looking at income and expenses, or it's a national system, you're looking at government spending and consumer spending. It's just systems, and that's what econ does.
So we started with the ancestors, and I definitely want to end with the ancestors. What kind of household were you brought up in for you to overdo schooling and for you to be so embedded in education?
Yeah, I grew up in a household with both my parents. Education changed the trajectory of their life. My dad grew up right across the street from Soundview Projects in South Bronx. It was poor and impoverished. He got a half athletic and half academic scholarship to Howard University. So brought him to DC. My mom grew up in a large part of her childhood in like a shack and on a farm. Impoverished. She was in Virginia, Southern Virginia, and she got opportunity to come up to DC to go to University of Maryland. So college directly changed both of my parents' life trajectory. And as a result, what did they drill and instill into me and my brother? Education, education, education. So that was just drilled into me. And that's why I think I set out on the path and career that I did, because obviously I had these two people that it showed like, hey, this will get you out of poverty. So for me, it was like, I gotta do it. Even if I don't know what I'm gonna do, their life said that this is what gets you out of poverty. So.
Absolutely. Sage, I want to say thank you so much for your time. Thank you
Thank
for what you've been like, for your work, for your life work. I'm waiting for you to win the Nobel Prize.
You know what's funny, man? You're the third person that's told me that in like a year. That's interesting. I got some ideas.
Do you accept? You accept?
I'm a touch and agree with you. I got some ideas. I really do. Like, I'm even like this. We're talking about the product side. There's some academic stuff that I want to study and bring to the world as well. So yeah.
So I am right now going to wordsliive.org.
Yes.
And I am requesting for what do I have to request? Or what is it that I'm asking for?
Go directly to the beta site. Go to wordsliivebeta.com. Go directly to the beta app. And you can, once you get in there, you can make a direct request. And request can be for whatever you need. It can be artists. I want some Beyonce stuff, some Drake stuff. Or it can be like, my kid struggles with topic, sentence, and argument structure, whatever the case may be. You can send those requests to us directly. Yeah, just wordsliivebeta.com.
I forgot, it's double I.
Double I's, two I's. There's a quick story behind that too. Everything got a story. The two I in the language convention stresses the long sound instead of the short sound. And then just visually, it's like my little subliminal. It looks like two people, like two little people. And so that's my subliminal for student-centered. I know it's corny, but I try to do these things. So.
I like it. I like it. So I'm here on the website now. I would just take me through a step-by-step on what it is that I'm doing.
Yep. First thing you want to do is sign up.
So as far as an account is concerned.
It's all free. It ain't no credit card, nothing like that gonna happen.
And thank you guys for bearing with me because I'm just going through the steps so you guys can go through the steps. Content requests. What do you want to teach?
Yep.
What do I want to teach?
That's what you tell me.
So, but what if what can I teach? What options do I have?
Anything. Like, again, we try to stay in a realm of like English, history, civics, and social studies, but focus on something your child is either a current unit or a unit that's coming up or something they're struggling with.
Okay, so I am going to connect. So as a parent, and I'm not just speaking for me, I'm speaking to the parent so you guys can properly have these conversations. Yeah. So I am going to speak with, since it's summertime, my child's teacher for next year.
Ah, yes.
And find out what's coming.
Yep.
Yeah, what's coming and what the syllabus is.
Yep.
Or lesson plan is for next year. Asnari will be in 12th grade and Asaria will be in 9th grade.
Oh, perfect.
And so, yeah. So to find out what those lesson plans are for, you said civics, English, and history.
Yep. Civics, social studies, English, and history. Those are our sweet spot. And usually your teachers will have a syllabus that'll have all the units in the unit planned outline. They may not have the specific lesson plan, but they'll have the units. So a unit on the Civil War, a unit on World War II, a unit on subject-verb agreement. So you want those units. And then that's how you can ask for the platform to help out. Like, I know my kid is going to need some reinforcement on, topic sentence. And that's when we can help him. Here's these 10 different songs, isolated examples, exercises, and activities for topic sentence.
So once I speak to my children's educators and I get this syllabus, is it better, because as a parent, I don't know what my child's doing. Like, I don't understand nothing on the syllabus. So is it better to copy paste the syllabus and send it, and then you guys can have a better understanding of what it is that the child needs? Or what's the best way to do this for parents that maybe A, don't speak English, B, have limited language skills themselves, or C, really know nothing about nothing, but just want to help?
We have had copy and pasted scope and sequences and syllabus come into us. We have had that. And that works because we know the teacher's language. So maybe if you don't want to articulate it yourself, you can definitely copy and paste because we'll know the language the teacher is speaking.
Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
Because I was really in this house struggling.
I know. I got a 16-month-old, so I know. It's not quite at the complexity level of K through 12, but this moment in time is.
Yeah. Yo, you miss daycare, Sage? I miss daycare.
I do, but you know what I decided? I'm not taking her back. We're gonna figure out.
Really?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do a nanny thing because I think I'm not going to be alone in this. I think you're going to see at least next year a move towards more homeschooling. I think so because baby girl is thriving, man. She's gone from no alphabets to all alphabets. Count to 1 through 10. She's getting up to color. She's only 16 months old, and she's thriving. So I'm kind of I'm keep her on this path because she's performing at a much higher level than she was through daycare. Yeah.
And if I can be honest, so is my 2-year-old. And I think it's the one-on-one interactions.
Yep.
But he missed playing with kids. That's the thing that's missing.
That's
his
thing.
social interactions with people his own age, because he thinks he's a boxer playing with my 16-year-old. So, I need him to go back to daycare just to have a little bit of fun, and then we can bring the learning back home. But Sage, again, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your life work. I touch and agree for anything and everything that you are currently working on and will be working on in the future. As far as your your medal. When you're ready for it, I'll touch and agree on it.
I appreciate you for that. Same with you. I know we don't have no time, but anything I can help you with and advance you on your path, please don't hesitate. Let me know. I'm here for all of that. And yeah, like same with you. Like all the ambition and success that you have, I pray is fulfilled.
Ashay, thank you so much. I love you. I appreciate you. Waking Up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day that we link up, but waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. I am Tayla Andre, TaylaAndre. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. And I hope you have an amazing day.
Peace.